Family court is supposed to be all about one thing: what's best for the child. But what happens when the scales of justice are tilted by something you can't even see? Today, we're going to unpack the huge contradiction at the heart of family law, the promise of a gender neutral system, and the often painful reality that so many parents face on the ground. And this is the promise, right? It's right there in black and white. The law is crystal clear. Courts are supposed to be gender neutral. The only thing that should matter is the best interests of the child. But, a promise is really only as good as its practice. And yeah, in practice, that's where things get, well, really complicated. Because just beneath that surface of neutrality, there are these powerful and often totally unconscious stories about gender that start to take over. I mean, just look at these two narratives. They're almost complete opposites of each other, yet both of them can pop up in the very same court system. On one side, you've got the old school traditional view. Mom is the caregiver. But then, especially in those really high conflict cases, the roles can flip entirely. Suddenly, mom is portrayed as hysterical and dad is the calm, rational one. The entire future of a family can literally depend on which one of these stories a judge ends up believing.
So let's dive in and start by looking at the ways these biases can stack up against mothers, creating what you could call the motherhood penalty.
Okay, so here is one of the most damaging stereotypes out there. It's when a protective mother gets framed as an alienator. Her totally legitimate concerns about her child's safety get twisted around and used as a weapon against her. She's recast as manipulative or, even worse, mentally unstable. And just notice how the focus gets shifted. Instead of actually investigating the evidence of abuse, the courtroom microscope suddenly turns onto the mother's character, her sanity. Her instinct to protect her child is reframed as an obsession. And the research here is pretty startling. As soon as a father makes that counterclaim of alienation, a mother's abuse allegations are suddenly seen as way less credible. And this brings us to a classic catch-22. The incredible trauma and stress of the whole situation, not to mention the potential abuse itself, can create emotional responses that are then turned around and used to completely discredit the person who's experiencing them. So think about it. If a mother cries, she's unstable. If she shows anger at what's happening, well, she's high conflict. Meanwhile, an abuser who can stay perfectly calm and collected under pressure can come across as way more credible to a judge or an evaluator who maybe doesn't have deep training in trauma. It creates this massive, massive credibility gap. But here's the thing, this is absolutely not a one-sided issue. Let's flip the coin now and talk about the fatherhood trap. Because fathers face their own set of really damaging stereotypes that can seriously limit their ability to be the parents they are and want to be. This is a big one, the weekend visitor stereotype. It's this deeply ingrained assumption that fathers aren't really the primary caregivers. Nope, they're just the source of fun and money. This is a total holdover from these outdated ideas where kids were just automatically assumed to belong with their mothers. I mean, just imagine this for a second. A father who was totally equally involved in the homework, the doctor's appointments, the bedtime stories. He can walk into court and suddenly find himself fighting this huge uphill battle. All of a sudden, he's forced to prove he was involved, which is a burden that's often just not placed on the mother. And the default offer? You guessed it, the classic every other weekend, no matter what his actual history as a parent looks like. This stereotype basically boils a father's value down to his wallet. His genuine desire for meaningful time with his kids can get totally lost in conversations that are all about child support calculations. The system can get so obsessed with the numbers that it completely overlooks the relationship, and this creates a really cruel irony. A dad might have to work more hours just to afford his legal fees, but then that very absence from home is used as proof that he's less involved. He can get slapped with that irresponsible deadbeat label, completely ignoring all the non-financial care and support he's providing. So, okay, we know these stereotypes are out there, but how do you actually spot them in your own situation? This next section is all about a practical tool to help you identify these biases while they're actually happening. This checklist is a great way to bring those biases out of the shadows. So for mothers, ask yourself, are your safety concerns being brushed off as just conflict? Is more attention being paid to your tone of voice than to the evidence you're presenting? And for fathers, are you automatically being treated like the backup parent? Are your requests for equal time being met with suspicion? These are the kinds of questions that can really start to reveal the hidden story playing out in your case. Recognizing the problem is step one, but step two is where you start to take back some control and actively work to change the narrative. This isn't about giving up or just blaming the system. It's about strategically reframing your case to get around these biases. The whole strategy here is to shift the focus. So instead of saying, I want this, you frame it as, my child needs this. Instead of getting into personal attacks, you present documented patterns of behavior. But the most powerful tool you have for this is something called functional evidence. And that third point? This is the real game changer. Functional evidence isn't about who loves the child more. It's about who actually does the work of parenting, day in and day out. It's neutral, it's driven by data, and it is incredibly hard to argue with. Seriously, think of this stuff as the receipts of parenting. Who gets the emails from the teacher? Who's the one signing the permission slips? Who schedules the doctor's appointments? This has nothing to do with emotion. It's a paper trail of action. And it cuts right through all the stereotypes by giving a clear, factual record of who is actually doing the day-to-day work of raising a child. Before we wrap up, it is so important to just take a moment and acknowledge the huge emotional toll this whole process takes. This isn't just a legal fight. It's a deeply personal and often psychological one. I mean, being stereotyped by a system that holds the entire fate of your family in its hands is just incredibly destabilizing. It can lead to serious mental health challenges for both moms and dads. So if you're going through this and you're struggling, that's not a personal failing. That is a completely human response to what is often an inhuman process. And all of this leaves us with one final really big question. If we could just strip away all of these default stories, all these outdated stereotypes about mothers and fathers, what would we even be left with? What does a family court system that truly sees parents as individuals and focuses only on the unique needs of each child, what does that actually look like?